guys, welcome back to Journey Teachers. Today we have Sudeep sir with us, who is a writer, a poet, and a creative consultant. And he's going to share a lot about his journey, his challenges, his achievements, and there's a lot to learn from him. And I'm so excited to get this podcast started. Hi Sudeep sir.
Hi, Kriti. Glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast. It's an absolute pleasure. I'm excited about our conversation today.
Is this our first podcast?
This would be my fourth podcast.
Fourth podcast.
Fourth podcast.
Oh, how excited or how nervous are you?
Not nervous as such. I'm more excited because what happens with me is that every single time I do a podcast or an interview, it compels me to think about things from the place I am in life right now. So if I did a podcast, say 4 years ago, the person I was back then is a different person. The person I am now has evolved since then, right? So I'm a different person now. So when you go back to my earlier podcasts and you listen to the newer ones, you can see that evolution. So, and sometimes this evolution is not something I am necessarily aware about because in the day to day, you get caught up, you're busy, there's so many things that you're worried about, you're thinking about, you're caught up with, right? But when you have an opportunity like this, with your podcast to speak, to think about things that to put your responses into perspective, I think that's an advantage for me as well. So I'm hoping to learn a lot about myself today as well.
Wow, that's a crazy perspective. And how is your LinkedIn so interesting? I actually went through your LinkedIn profile, and it says that you want to prove a point, which is to go in a straight line, and that can take you far. So tell me something about that.
All right. Okay. Let me put it this way. LinkedIn is a very boring place, right? I'm bored of it. It's for professionals, it's good because you get to network and stuff. But do you enjoy reading LinkedIn posts, Kriti? Do you?
It depends on the
It depends upon the person. It depends upon the post, right?
Yeah.
Not all posts are interesting to read. The fact is, LinkedIn is a place where let me put it this way: when you go for a job interview in a corporate setting, right? They expect you to wear a shirt, a tie, maybe, yeah, trousers and shoes that are shining, polished, right? Why? Because you're expected to fit into a certain template. LinkedIn, most content on LinkedIn fits into certain templates. It's motivational, it's inspirational, it's self-selling, so you're selling yourself, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people do it in a very direct way. They do it in a very braggy way, which I personally don't quite enjoy. There are interesting ways, like content itself, right? There's so much content out there today, but not all content is interesting, whether it's on Netflix, whether it's on YouTube, or whether it's on LinkedIn. So my quest is to try and make content for my readers or my audiences on LinkedIn interesting. And to that point you made about you can't really get anywhere if you keep going in a straight line, it's as simple as that. The shortest distance between 2 points mathematically might be a straight line. Do we agree?
Yeah.
But is life always linear?
No, not at all.
Not at all. If life is not linear, why should your career path be? Right? You as a person might be passionate about something today. The next year, you might be passionate about something else. You might continue to be passionate about that same thing you were passionate about a year back, but the way in which you express your passion or make something of it might change. But if you force yourself to follow just a straight line, because this is what the corporate gurus have said, or this is what mummy daddy taught me, or this is what my college and school teachers taught me, it may not work for everyone, right? Not everyone's a carbon copy of each other. Kriti is unique. Sudeep is unique. There are a billion people out there possibly with the name Kriti or the name Sudeep, but they don't have your experiences. You don't have theirs. So your path needs to be defined by yourself, and in all likelihood, that's never going to be linear. Once you realize and accept that, that's when I truly believe that you evolve as a person. And when you evolve as a person and give yourself the space to grow, that's when you evolve as a professional as well. That's my perspective on that.
I think I've really connected the dots very well, leading to when it comes to personal and professional life, and there's a balance between the both. And change is the only constant.
It
I
is.
think it is. So tell me something about your journey. How did your writing journey start? Where did your motivation come from?
Wow. Once again, going back to the fact that I've done a few podcasts before, and the first two were somewhat similar. If you go back and you search for them, you'll find that they're somewhat similar, the responses. But as I said, each new opportunity like this compels me to think about what really motivated me, what got me into this.
So maybe you can answer this one differently.
Yeah, through a poem, maybe?
Yeah,
A spoken
sure.
word poem? Yeah. So this one's called Story of My Life. So if you listen to me now, I'll tell you my story. I'll keep it simple so it's not too boring. Memories storing and journeys exploring. Started out walking, but soon I was soaring. But that's how it always happens. When you start out, you're small. You've got to keep growing up before you can stand tall. You're going to get hurt. You're going to hurt and you're going to have to fall. You're going to have to lose it before you can have it all. Do you agree? And believe me when I say, it still happens to me every day. I have my good days, but then some are really bad. I may not scream or shout, but I'm going crazy mad. But like a storm chaser in a hurricane that's blowing, the reason I'm here is I've always kept going. So keep going. When I was back in school, they used to call me a nerd. They said I was uncool and I couldn't say a word. I wished that I could fly in the sky. I wished I was a bird. 10 years of my life, I always went unheard. But it wasn't just the kids. Some teachers did it too. They called me useless and they made me feel it's true. This didn't ever stop. No, in fact, it only grew. In the Technicolor world, all I ever saw was blue. But that was long ago. I'll bring you back to now. I'm not the way I was before, and let me tell you how. You ready?
Sure.
Yeah. So, I've traveled far and long and I've seen so many sights. I've been through many spills and thrills and just as many frights. I've written all through the day and even through the night. I do this because I love the page, I love the stage, and being in its presence feels right. You know? I'm a poet and I know it and I won't apologize. Will never give a damn about the hows and whats and whys. They cannot hold me guilty for my special ability. Instead, I'll judge them. It's my responsibility to paint some ugly pictures with my powerful rhymes, to write about ignorance, exposing crimes. And when they knock me down, I'll get back up and fight. It's what we do as writers, no, Kriti? We are bully proof because we write. And that is the story of my life. That's where it started. In school, it wasn't so great. Many parts of it, was not very academically strong. I'll admit to that. But the one thing that was my salvation was being able to write about it, to paint a picture of what happened, to express myself. And doing that for long enough, you develop muscle memory, right? You do anything. You lift a mug often enough. You want to even, for example, you're sleeping at night. In the morning, you wake up, your eyes are closed. Can you open your eyes immediately in the morning? You can't, right?
No.
And sometimes you have your phone or a mug or a water bottle placed on your bedside table. Do you always look for it first and then pick it up? You don't, right? You're used to it because you know where it's going to be. You've been doing it for a week, a month, a year, more. Writing's like that. It's muscle memory. Performance is like that. It's muscle memory. You do it long enough, you do it consistently enough. Eventually, you get the basics right. Once you get the basics right, everything else is an add-on. Making vanilla ice cream is getting the basics right. It takes a long time, right, to know the right recipe for the right vanilla ice cream. But अगर उसको आपको और अच्छा बनाना है, if you want to add toppings, you want to add sprinkles, you can do that, but that's later. First, you got to get the base right. And I believe consistency, what I've done over the years, got me to the point where I developed the confidence that, in the middle of the night, if you wake me up and you're like, hey, can you write a poem on this, or can you write about this, or can you give me a script for this or ideas for that? It comes very naturally to me, not because I am innately gifted or something, right? I might be inclined towards something, but then inclination doesn't always equate with being great at something or good at something even. You have to practice, you have to keep at it. I've written all through the day and even through the night. And then eventually you do this because you love the page and you love the stage and being here feels right. So once you get to that point, Once I got to that point, which is my early college years, that's when I knew that, no matter what identity I would have in my life, whether it's that of a content marketer, whether it's that of a copywriter, whether it's that of a disaster management professional, whether it's that of a teacher, the base identity will always remain that of an artist, and more specifically that of a writer.
That's a crazy journey. And in fact, you talked about the muscle memory, the way you remembered the entire poem. That was, I think that's really rare because you develop that habit and that consistency to go on and make your piece remember and just like narrate it whenever and anywhere required. So hats off for that.
Thank you.
So what were the challenges you faced in your writing journey?
Oh, many. Mm,
Maybe any particular example or any story like the vanilla ice cream you told.
so, writing, as you rightly pointed out, is a spectrum. It's a journey, right? There's ups and there's downs. I've been through many spills and thrills and just as many frights, right? I have my good days, but then some are really bad. The worst thing that can happen to you as an artist, as a writer, is an attack on your self confidence. And most often, that attack comes from nowhere else but you.
From inside.
Inside here, inside here. It's very tough to go on those days when you feel that something I've written is absolute crap. It's not worth reading or showing to anyone, right? Vanilla ice cream. What do you? I'll ask you a question. I'll answer your question with partially with a question.
Go ahead.
Is there something that you like cooking? Something you're good at making?
Eggs.
Any dish. Eggs. What eggs? Scrambled eggs, fried eggs. What's your favorite?
So there's this dish called shakshuka, which is
Shakshuka.
like
Yeah.
It's a half.
It's a Middle Eastern. Yeah. Right. It's a bit of a complicated dish. It's not the first thing that someone learns. Growing up,
So
I learned an
I make
omelette.
it my way. I
You make it your way. Yeah. When's the first time you ever made a shakshuka?
I think it was when I was back home in 12th standard or something.
And is that the very first egg item you made?
No.
It wasn't.
I think the first one was just boiled eggs.
A boiled egg, right? And the first time you ever made a boiled egg, was it the perfect boiled egg?
No, it was semi-boiled.
Disastrous,
yeah.
right? That's what happens, right? You have to have patience with yourself. And in my journey, very early on, I often did not have patience with myself. I used to judge myself very harshly. And that led to me abandoning a lot of projects midway. I remember this. I had a friend in school, in my 8th standard or 9th standard, and we started writing 2 books together. He'd write one chapter, I'd write one chapter. I say do books there. So we started writing them. And there was another independent book that I started writing also.
So, what kind of challenges did you face in your writing journey?
You refer to it very rightly as writing being a journey. It's spectrum, right? There's ups and there's downs. There's good days and there's bad days. Challenges were many for me. The main thing being self-confidence. That is the number one killer of any dream, any ambition, any creative person has. It's not others telling you that you're not good enough or that your work is not good enough. It's that voice inside your head, inside your heart that sometimes tells you you could be doing better. You shouldn't keep at it. I remember when I was in school, I had some friends and we started writing these books together, science fiction and other things. Somewhere down the line, that childlike innocence, because when you are younger, and this is an advantage of being young, I believe, right? And this is great advice I feel for writers or artists who are young, college students, school students, anyone watching this podcast who is young, right? There are lesser filters in your head in how you perceive both the world and yourself, right? As you grow up, as you grow older, those filters keep adding up. Filters of quality, filters of confidence. But when you're young, you feel you're immortal. You can do anything. No idea is too stupid. That's why children make up these stories, right, about monsters and all, because in their heads, it's very vivid. As you grow older, you're like, yeah, monsters ke baare mein kyun लिखेंगे? Why we write about monsters and unicorns and all? That's so stupid. That doesn't exist. Let's write about, you know, people falling out of love or people whatever, right? College experiences, jobs, all that, which is great. But then that's you lose your childlike innocence, and a consequence of losing your childlike innocence is you start developing these filters which, prevent you from making progress. Now, writing, once again, going back to the fact that it's a journey. What's a journey? You start somewhere and you continue. Let's say you may not necessarily know where your journey is ending up, but you know that you are on a journey. Have you been on a trek?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where?
Nandi Hills.
Nandi Hills. Now, how long did it take?
I think 1.5 hours.
1.5 hours. It's not a direct trek, right? It's not a flat path. Did you get tired at all in some ways? Did you stop? Did you pause to rest? But did you sit there and say, no, I'm not going ahead, I'm going back now?
Actually, I did, but my friends encouraged me.
And then what happened?
I
You went ahead. You went ahead. Keep moving, right? You have to keep moving. Remember the poem? The reason I'm here is I've always kept going. So you have to keep going. That's super important. So challenges were primarily that of self confidence or the lack thereof. Another major challenge was growing up in the 1990s in India or the early 2000s. I know it sounds like I'm a dinosaur, right? Uh, I'm just a millennial. But growing up in the 1990s and 2000s, the resources that we have access to today, right? Mm, I didn't have those. The internet was in its nascency. It wasn't as fully fledged, developed as it is today. Uh, Number of websites were limited. There wasn't video calling. We could not conceive the concept of something like a broad school or, a terribly tiny tales existing or anything that could teach you creative writing, or we had to go for physical workshops. And if you couldn't go for that workshop because you're sick or your parents couldn't take you that day, then that's that. So lack of resources and also a very conventional paradigm of looking at things. So my school, it was very academic. So, our school prided itself on having 100% pass rate and all that. Important, sure, but is that the only thing that you need to develop for a holistic way of looking at the world? I disagree, right? And I disagreed even then. So I was often in conflict with what my teachers wanted or what society or, family wanted from me back in the day. But I persisted. Persistence is key. That's the point I'm trying to make here. The challenges were lack of self-confidence and lack of infrastructural support, both societal as well as physical infrastructure, right? There weren't as many courses to teach you writing. You could not submit your work to, there was no Instagram banker. How would I show my work to so many people, right? You'd perform at a school gathering, you'd perform at an annual function, you'd perform maybe for your parents, your family, your friends at the most. But then there were no concepts of open mics back there. They weren't. They just weren't. And fortunately, I did theater for 8 years at Prithvi Theater in Mumbai. So I'm trained for 8 years in theater. Uh, that helped me develop confidence, greater confidence. I wrote plays for school, plays which won competitions. Small things, small validations build up into greater confidence, right? And eventually, it wasn't just about the the validation. It started to get into a place of security where I'm secure with myself. Am I the best writer in the world? Definitely not. Am I an exceptional writer? I don't think so personally. But am I a good writer? Can I write and can I be better? And do I have the confidence to know that I will get better? Yes.
I think that is the most important thing, and that is all that matters in absolutely. So, what kind of early success or achievements have you faced?
Ah, I don't know whether you know this about me or do you know this about me? Do you know that early success? You don't. 2004, I received a national award from the President of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, for creative writing at the Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi. And I met him again in 2005, the next year. This was a huge moment in my life, a pivotal point, the turning point, as they say, where everything changed. People in my life were focusing on Sudeep, you need to be good at maths, you need to be good at science, you need to be good at history and geography. They didn't stop saying,
And there you were getting
and there I was, right? And then there were other competitions that happened. There were newspaper interviews, there were television interviews. Oh my god, that was a crazy time in my life. Where I felt it wasn't a small success, right? My small successes really started after the big success. But can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
Success at that age is a double-edged sword because it can go to your eye. It went to my eye. I thought too much of myself. I thought मुझसे बेहतर कोई नहीं है दुनिया में. Nobody can do what I can do. Big mistake. Because when you start thinking that way, you stop learning, you stop growing, you stop caring about any feedback that you get, right? Because you're so it's important to be confident about yourself. It's important to have that security and that stability in your mind, at least, that I can do better, but I'm in a good enough place. But if that exceeds a certain point, a threshold, right? You've heard of in economics as a concept of diminishing marginal utility. Have you heard of that? In school, they teach that to you, right? In college, about mangoes, they give you an example of mangoes. So you have 10 mangoes, you're very happy, right? You have 20 mangoes, you're even happier. Then by the time they give you the 30th mango, your happiness starts to decline. And then by the time of the 40th mango, you're sad. Where earlier the mango gave you happiness, now it's giving you sadness. Similarly, when success or fame goes to your head, when it happens too fast, too soon, it can be very dangerous because then a decline happens after that. And if that is the validation that you want at that age, then anything that happens, small successes, they don't seem big enough. So I had to unlearn and I had to relearn. I had to humble myself and I had to let myself be humbled by people, by the world, by my experiences. Only then did I get to a point where I realized that was that. This is now. It's time to start again.
What was that point when you realized, like, no, I would go in the wrong direction?
Hmm. It's a very intriguing question. No one's asked me that before. Um, that point came when I started to lose a lot of my friends, people who meant a lot to me, because I was very rude to them. I was dismissive of them. I believed I was more intelligent than them, which was not the case, but I believed it. And they tolerated me for a very long time. But they tolerated that attitude and that behavior, but you can only do it to a certain point, right? When it crossed the threshold for them, they started to leave me, right? Some called me out on it, some didn't. But I had to lose, you know, that's how it always happens when you start out, you're small. You're going to have to stand up before you can stand tall, right? Uh, you're going to have to get hurt and you're going to have to fall. You're going to have to lose it before you can have it all. Bring it back to that poem. Yeah. Right? And believe me, when I say it happens to me every day, I have to struggle with that even today. I have to keep a balance. It's a delicate balance between being in a place where I'm not so confident of myself or so full of myself that I think no one's better than me. And also I can't let myself get below a certain point where I'm not good enough. So it's constantly a struggle to maintain that balance even today. So that was that pivotal moment which really made me look inside, reflect. And there were also what ends up happening is when you think your way is the way day, and so then there were other competitions or these other things that you submit for thinking, oh, this is a shoe in for me. I'm gonna win this, right? Nobody else can win this. And you start to lose. I lost friends, I lost competitions, I lost opportunities, you know?
You started declining. What is spoken word for you when it comes to spoken word poetry? What does it mean for you?
Wow. You know why I'm laughing? When I used to do sessions on spoken word poetry, uh, I used to have the slide which said, what is spoken word poetry? Very profoundly. The next slide would be, spoken word is poetry that's spoken. But it actually is. I mean, of course, that's a very simplistic way to look at it. I'll try to give you a bit more of a nuanced answer. Before I answer that, let me tell you about how I got into spoken word. 2005, I think. There was something in Mumbai. I was in Mumbai back then. I studied in Jain College. So there was something of the Bombay Electric Project. And there's a newspaper that came then called Midday. It still comes. But so Midday, uh, Sunday, Midday. So on Sundays we used to get a special newspaper. Um, so in Sunday Midday in the events section, right? I was just in college. I just started college. Was very excited to attend events, film festivals and all. So I opened up that paper, the events section, and I saw that there's something called the Bombay Poetry Slam or something like that that's happening at a place called the Mumbai Times Cafe in Bandra, organized by the Bombay Electric Project. Then I did some research into what is slam or beat poetry, and it's not exactly the same thing, but I was into beat poetry at that time. And, when I researched slam, there were some connections over there. I won't get into the technical aspects of it, of course, but, poets like Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg were the ones I drew inspiration from at that time. So my poetry was very, back then, what's the term in psychology? Flow, there's a term, no? Flow something.
Free voice?
It's free verse is one, but it's where a state of flow. It's where you speak and you're not really adding any filters. Because when I'm talking to you, I'm thinking and then filtering those thoughts and saying it to you. But it's free
Free
something.
flow.
Free flow, yeah. Let's just call it free flow. Huh? But yeah. So my poetry was a lot like that back then, and it aligned with I drew inspiration from, and then it aligned with the beats poetry in some way. The beat poets, Ginsberg and Kerouac in particular. Um, and then when I went to this event, I performed a couple of things over there. And I'll be honest, the reason I went there was for a free beer because they said every performer gets one free beer. So I'm like, okay, I'll get a free beer. I'm a student, why not? But then I started participating in more such events, attending more such events. Um, Combined my knowledge and skills in theater, my passion for theater, with my knowledge and skills in writing and my passion for writing, and you merge that. Spoken word is basically literally just that. Spoken word is words that you speak. What is spoken word poetry? Spoken word poetry comes, the modern day we understand it, from an ancient tradition. Since since the dawn of humanity, writing developed much later, right? So since the dawn of humanity, when human beings started developing vocal communication with each other, how did knowledge of the tribes get passed on from one generation to the other? Oral histories, the Rama in India, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, so many of our myths, right? In South India, so many of our myths in South India, so many of our epic poems in South India, they're all translated orally,
Right.
transmitted orally from one person to another, to another, to another. At some point, yes, they got written down and they got disseminated after the popularity and the prevalence of the printing press and of papyrus and other ways of recording history on parchment or stone or paper or whatever. Before that, it was all spoken. Now, if I tell you, for example, um, there's a star in the sky up there. It does not just act like a point of light, but it actually shines. That next to it is a planet. That is not a star. They look similar, but they're not. Because you see, the planet is shining, but it's not sparkling or twinkling. That is a star. All right? The star twinkles. Now, if I had to tell you this and you had to pass this on to your kids and your kids' kids and so on and so forth, it's so boring. Why would I care? But then when you say, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky, the rhyme, the rhythm, the cadence, all of it really um, comes together and it makes for an experience that you remember, right? Right? What's your favorite movie?
Ye Jawani Hai Diwani?
Ye Jawani Hai Diwani. Do you know any line from it?
Oh, जहाँ हो वही का मजा लेते हैं, which Naina said to Bunny.
If you had read the script of it even 100 times, it's very unlikely you would be able to remember this as accurately as you did. So when you hear things and when you see people say them and say them with a certain passion, with a certain intensity, it stays, right? It leaves an impact on you. To me, that's what spoken word poetry is, or spoken word is. It's you communicating a thought, a concept, anything to another person or to an audience, where you're saying it in a way that's impactful, it's meaningful, right? And obviously, there are tools and techniques that you employ, like hand gestures and body language and eye contact and so on and so forth. But those are very technical. But if you're passionate about something and telling something to someone, story of my life, you ask me, how do I remember it? Or you were impressed that I remember it.
Yeah.
I didn't sit down somewhere and memorize it after writing it down 10 times. It is the story of my life. How will I not remember it? If I don't remember it, who am I expecting will remember it? Right? So, spoken word poetry, good spoken word. Yeah, I know I'm qualifying it a bit more than you asked me, but I'll tell you this. Good spoken word is authentic spoken word. It's genuine. It comes from a place of honesty. It comes from a case of truth. Um, if you're not authentic, if you're not honest about communicating an experience, if I told you, if I wrote a poem as a black woman in the Black Lives Matter thing, do I have the technical skills to write it and a base understanding of empathy to be able to write it and convince someone that I'm a black woman talking? Yes, I do. Will I ever do it? No, I won't. It's not my lived experience. It's not my story to tell. And even if I did it, you're not going to believe me. It's not going to be authentic when I say it, right? My poem that went viral in 2017, As a Man, that was its original title, and later it got called The Privileges of a Penis because that sells on social media. And there is poetry through that. Um, if I wrote a poem as a woman, it would not have connected with anyone. I wrote about my experiences as a man and I performed it. That's where that authenticity came from. So, no matter how good a performer you are, no matter how good a salesman you are of words, you're never going to be able to be great at spoken word if you don't believe what you're saying yourself.
And maybe you're not experienced as well.
Yo?
You have not experienced that yourself as well.
So, there's two things for this, okay? Can you write about things that you've not experienced about? Yes, because you can read about it. Can I write about World War II? I've read so much, I've seen so much, it's impacted me, right? I can, and I do write about it. Um, I have a conflict, to be honest. A few of my poems, which got very popular, were written from someone else's perspective, something that I had not experienced myself. Um, would I write those same poems from their perspective today? No, I would not. Evolution, right? I've evolved as a writer, I've evolved as a thinker since then. I would not do it again. But I did that back then. They worked in some ways, but I do not believe that if I were to do that again today, that would work in any way, nor would I want to do it. Um, it's possible to write about those experiences from a third person's point of view, right? As an observer, I can, I do. Now you might ask, but Sudeep, if you're writing a novel about two characters in three independence times, with the characters a man and a woman, you weren't even pre-independence, how would you do it? There are nuances, right? You can't paint everything with a blanket thing. I'm talking only about spoken word here because spoken word is generally more intimate, right? It's performed in rooms with people, with real people.
And it should relate to people.
You relate to people, right? So, spoken word for me, to boil it down, if I had to give you one sentence, is the art of conveying your thoughts and emotions through your words in an impactful and meaningful manner, aided by your expressions and your body language.
I think that's a wonderful definition and combine all the details of the art into this.
I actually went all over the place, but it made me think of so many things.
Yeah.
I like your questions because they're really making me ponder on things.
But why not doing it full time in terms of why not being an artist? And you are going into teaching as well, right? So why not? Why did you decide on teaching instead of being an artist yourself?
Okay, it's a very good question. I thought about it many times. I tried it for a while. See, unfortunately, the practicalities of one's existence sometimes imply or necessitate one to take certain decisions that may not be in the interest of what they are passionate about always, right? I wanted to study filmmaking, but I did not have the money to study filmmaking. I wanted to study only in New York or LA. Didn't have the money for it. I wanted to pursue my art full time, but then there were certain responsibilities, bills to pay. It's the oldest thing in the book, I know, but it is what it is, at least for me. I'm not saying that my way is right. There might be people who will be like, so what? We'll still do it. I admire them, I respect them. I wasn't that person. So my reality and my circumstance and my truth at that time meant that I could not pursue this. But, you know, as I'm growing older, I'm realizing that I value time a little more than money now. Because money is limited, yes. The time is even more limited, right? I want to make the best of the time that I have, which is why I'm getting back into teaching. I'm getting back into consulting full time. Yeah, freelancing. And I'm passionate about teaching. I love teaching. You know why I love teaching? Because I had some really good teachers and then I had some not very good teachers. And I decided that if I ever teach, I'll be a good teacher. And also, spoken word is communicating with people, right? What is teaching? Teaching is being good at spoken word. Yeah. The best teachers tell you a story. The worst teachers tell you to open your book to page 36. Do you agree? Yeah, I hope none of your teachers are watching this. But no, genuinely, like I believe that it's very, very important for me to uh give what I have received. Give back, give to, give ahead. And I believe teaching is a great way to do that, right? And the reason I like teaching and the reason I'm so passionate about it is in every student of mine, I see a little bit of myself, right? And if something I've said, something I've done can help one of my students take a decision they wanted to take that helps them in some way, emotionally, mentally, physically, financially, whatever. I believe I've earned some good karma and I believe I'm fulfilling the purpose that I might be on this planet for in some ways. It's very meta, very philosophical. I know I'm not that philosophical or a meta person, but in this case, I do feel that. Yeah, I feel that if there's something that a calling, a true calling that I have, that is teaching. So, so teaching is one thing. Then even consulting is in some way teaching, right?
It is.
When you're consulting with someone, someone's asking you for guidance, you're teaching them in some way. You might be doing some of the work for them, but yeah, but you're also explaining, you're also communicating. Writing is a great way to do that. Spoken word is a great way to do that. So, an amalgamation of all my experiences and skills has brought me to this point where I'm finally able to offer my services at very reasonable rates, right? Because I've been on the brand side and I've been on on the consumer side and I've been on the agency side. And the main pain point of the brand is that agencies charge too much and don't deliver enough value. The major point of the consumer is that stop this damn advertising. I'm tired of it. Right? Don't tell me what to buy, I'll make my own decisions. The pain point of the agency is that brands don't pay enough. And the fact that no one really knows what's best for the consumer. Everyone's just playing a guessing game. Right? And of course the client does not understand, the brand does not understand our creative vision and all that. Having been on all these sites, I think I'm uniquely positioned right now to offer services to any of these parties, whether it's to the consumer, not so much to the consumer, but more to the brand side or to the agency side, helping them solve their problems by showing them what is there in their blind side. Certain things you're just not able to see, right? Your perspective right now, I can see what's behind you. You can't see what's behind yourself unless you turn around. And you don't have the time to turn around or you don't have the resources to turn around, but I do. So I'm uniquely positioned. I have seen what's here, I've seen what's there. I can help you in that way. So all of those experiences come together to, kind of put me in where I am right now. So I'm really excited to be at this point where I'm starting this. I've been doing it for a while, of course, but I'm doing it more in a more consolidated, in a more concrete, in a more structured manner now.
So what's the plan?
Oof. What would I like to do? I would like to go to the mountains for 3 months, work from there. I might just do that. Yeah. By the time your episode releases, I might be somewhere in the mountains.
Okay.
I might pursue scuba diving. I picked up a new hobby. Yeah. I got my scuba certification in Sri Lanka a few months ago. I explored, discovered scuba diving for the first time in Thailand last year. Loved it. And I did a course in Sri Lanka this year. So I might pursue that a bit more. It's an expensive hobby, so I need clients. I need, uh, I need to get income in order to pursue it more. But the plan is to take a break because, Kudi, I believe very strongly people don't do this enough. Life is not linear, remember? Coming back to the very start of our conversation. And I have never moved in a linear path. I cannot imagine a world where I'm going from school to college to job to another job to another job to another job to retirement to death. That'll kill me before I go to my third job. It would have, right? It's not my third job anymore, but um, because of my belief in the power of non-linearity and my inability to proceed in a completely linear fashion and be happy with it, I'm prioritizing things that need to be prioritized, like my mental well-being, like what I'm passionate about. It may not necessarily result in immediate gains, but it's like investment. You have to invest in investment. The stupidest thing I've ever said to a friend of mine who was an investor, I remember, I'm like, यार ये मेरे पास 10,000 एक्स्ट्रा है, मैं तेरे को देता और 2 महीने में डबल करके देगा. He looks at me, he's like, what? कौन सी दुनिया से आया थी, right? Similarly, for life, for growth, whether in creativity, whether in writing, whether in art, whether in consulting, you have to invest. And I have learned, at least for me, I want to invest in myself right now. I want to invest in my learning. I've taken up a course in screenwriting, right? It's a course I'm doing from a university. I'm pitching some scripts to some production houses, but to get there, I don't want to rush it. I want to take my time. I want to build my health up again, right? I've been running the rat race for far too long, 12 and a half years without a break. Doesn't sound like a long time, but imagine non-stop if you're doing Bhabdod for 12 years, gets tiring at some point. No? And then you start going on autopilot. My hair, if you'd done this interview with me 4 years ago, was black. And people in Google search for my name and go to Google Images and search for, they'll see photos and they won't believe it's me from so many years ago. All this happens to you, right? Like the gray in the hair, the gray in the beard. And I'm not saying I want to reverse that or anything, but I want to focus on myself for a while, right? So that's what the plan is right now. Focus on myself for a while continuing to, of course, build up my portfolio, my repertoire. I stopped writing, Kriti, for a very long time. I can't remember the last time I've written um, a poem that I'm proud of. Uh, Actually, no, it's not true. It's recent. I won a competition recently.
Which one?
So there's this non-profit called the Red Dot Foundation, and so they partnered with the U.S. consulate in Mumbai to have this competition called it's on democracy, art for democracy. So I wrote a poem for that, and I got second place in that incidentally. But I'm not writing as much as I want to be writing, right? And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get back to that. There was a time when I used to write at least a poem a day. I did this for 3 years. A poem a day. Do the math. 3, 6, 9. I have written over 1,000 poems in 1 year.
Hello.
Are all of them great? No, probably 10, 20 of them. How many of them are good? Maybe 30, 40. How many of them are bad? 9,000 plus. Oh, not 9,000, 900 plus. Yeah. But I still wrote. Consistent. I want to get back to that consistency. Because if I don't practice what I preach, then why do you even want to have me on your podcast? Right? I don't want to be one of those fake people out there. There's enough of them over there. They'll tell you something, they'll do something else. I have also been that person. I don't want to be that person anymore.
That's quite interesting. I feel like you are going on that path of, if I remember accurately from that movie, Zindagi Na Milegi Dobaya, on that path of like, exploring a passion and just taking a break and do whatever you want to do. Uh, so why did you always choose those unconventional paths? What made you,
Hmm.
go at that?
I was never good at academics, like I mentioned earlier. I mean, I'm saying wasn't good. It's not that I was bad, but I wasn't great at it. I was an very average person, 60, 70% kind of person, right? Academically speaking. Uh, and I did what I wanted to do in the moment. So I studied literature and I did my master's honors in English for 1 year at Bombay University. And then I quit. I dropped out. I'm a dropout. I dropped out and I went to DIS, the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, where I did a master's in disaster management. I worked with the government of Haryana for over a year. Then I joined Teach for India as a school teacher, the low income school, for 8 months. Then I joined a non-profit, an NGO, working on disability rights in action, advocacy. Did that for over 2 years. Then I joined private wealth management, where I was consulting on philanthropy and content. Then I came to Bangalore, joined a startup which worked on content, yeah, creativity, poetry, writing. Then I quit. I lost my job actually in 18, uh, funding issues. So I was very stubborn. You know, I decided not to, but like a storm chaser and hurricane is blowing. The reason I'm here is I've always kept going. I stayed in Bangalore for 3 months. I printed out my own business cards overnight. I distributed it to hundreds of people across the city. I took up every small gig that I could find. I have done it all, Kriti. I have hosted events. I've hosted birthday parties for people for 5,000 rupees, for 3,000 rupees, just to have enough for my rent and maybe one meal a day. I did this for 3 months while I applied to 40 jobs a day. Finally, I got a job. So I've done it. And that gave me the confidence to know that, so even recently when I quit my job, I had the confidence to know that I could make it, which is why, because I've done it before. Then I did fintech, I did education technology, right? I've done ad tech, all the while I've been consulting, right? So, and then when you do all this over time, you realize, you go to a buffet, you've been to a buffet, yeah? Abhi buffet mein there's 10 items, 20 items. You take a little. Next time you go to the buffet, you don't go to all the items again. अच्छा मेरे को ये अच्छा लगा. I like this. I'll take a little more of it this time. I'll take a little more of this time. So you don't even waste and you also get more of what you want faster, quicker. So that's been my journey. That's why I've chosen these non-linear things, right? They had the advantage of having done so much. And honestly, if I think about it, I don't know if I could have done anything else. अगर आप मुझे एक कन्वेंशनल बॉक्स में डालते और एक बोलते कि भाई ये सीधा लाइन है इस पे चलो आप, मैं कर नहीं पाता, मैं कोलैप्स हो जाता, राइट? मैं बर्नआउट हो जाता बहुत जल्दी. I think creative people who are passionate about creativity, who are a bit more right brain in some way. Of course, the right brain thing is one aspect of it. Who are empathetic in some way, who are sensitive in some way. Uh, you'll find it very hard for them to get them to go just in a straight line because they're very curious, right? Line. Oh, what's that? A cloud. Let me go towards the cloud. Cloud. Okay, Rekhi, nice cloud. What's that? Oh, there's a valley. Let me go towards the valley. Go towards the valley. Oh, what's that? There's the ocean. It's right over there. Okay, I'll cross the road, cross the river, go to the ocean. Okay, ocean. No, I like the cloud again. Let me go back to the cloud. So, with, and that's what's worked for me, right? For some people, the linear path works really well. And kudos to them. Great for them. Good for them. I wasn't ever that person. So for me, it had to be a non-linear journey for me to get to where I am. It could not have been any other way.
I think they're slowly decoding your entire poem as per like
Yes,
each
that was the intention. I'm so glad you picked up on it. Yeah.
yeah. So what is that advice?
You can actually have the poem as a TNDR version. Too long did read, too long didn't listen. Here's the poem. Like the Saransh of the entire podcast is a poem.
So true. So, what will be your, advice for the young generation in terms of what life lessons you have from your journey?
It sounds, I'm gonna sound like a boomer or something over here, but or like an old millennial. But I'll tell you once, kindness. Nothing more important than that. Kindness to yourself first. I'm not saying first, but as important as kindness to others. Be kind to yourself, be empathetic towards yourself, be empathetic towards others, kind towards others. Be open to perspectives that are different from your own. You have the right to disagree, but don't think that, never go into that zone of thinking that your path is the only path or that your knowledge is the only right knowledge. It can lead to very dangerous cases. Um, Another thing is, be open to change. It's very hard. Change is very hard, right? We get into routines, we get into patterns. But if you are open to the possibility of seeing beauty where others are saying sir kachra hai, then life can change a lot, right? I'll give you one small example of this. Have you heard of poetry in motion?
Putting emotions
No, poetry in motion.
in. No.
So poetry in motion, I'm not sure if I'm getting the concept right, but the way I was taught it or the way I learned of it was basically through newspaper cuttings. So imagine take a newspaper and you cut out different words and you keep them there on a pile. And I tell you, Kriti, write a poem. You'll see those words, you'll arrange them in a beautiful way to write a poem. But you take somebody else who hates words for whatever reason, and that's their right to hate, if they so choose. Um, they won't see the words over there or the potential of a poem in the cutout thing. They'll see garbage and they'll want to throw it in the waste paper bin. But if you're open to the possibility of looking beyond, just a little beyond, where things, it'll help you when things are dark. It'll help you when times are tough. Because you will have conditioned your mind and your soul and your body to perceive things, to perceive beauty in the smallest of things, to perceive beauty in the ugliest of things, right? And as long as a spark of hope remains, you will continue, you will endure. Once again, like a storm chaser, an hurricane is blowing. The reason I'm here is I've always kept going. So be relentless, but be relentless with kindness, with empathy, with an open mind and an open heart. So I think इससे ज़्यादा ज्ञान नहीं पे रहूँगा.
So that's been a crazy journey, and that's completely right. As you are able to find joy in small things of life, I think you're just sorted because you will be satisfied, you will be happy, and you'll be living life to the fullest.
See, there's no guarantee that you'll always be happy, and you should be okay with that too. Things come, things go. सांस अंदर लेते हैं, बाहर छोड़ते हैं. अगर सांस अंदर लिया और एकदम होल्ड किया उसको कि ये इतना प्रेशियस है, मैं इसको जाने नहीं दे सकता, अब मर जाओगे. सांस बाहर छोड़ा और कहा कि नहीं मैं थक गया हूँ सांस लेके और नहीं लेना है, तब भी मर जाओगे, राइट? सो टेक द गुड विद द बैड, take the happy with the sad. See, even that's poem, right?
I think you have a poem in every stick, every second.
You know what happens is it's very funny. I think sometimes in rhyme. Generally, not every time, but sometimes I end up thinking in rhyme. It comes out in my words. So
Is it natural or
it's now it's natural. When I first started off writing, it wasn't. But I think 5-6 years after I started writing, it started developing more and more and more. And I just start to think in rhyme sometimes, and the flow happens that way.
that's amazing. That's the true quality of being a good writer.
Thank you.
So, how do you want people to actually, how do you envision yourself in the future? What are you going to do next?
I'll tell you about my next 3 months. I mentioned that I might be going to Himachal Pradesh and all. But that aside, I don't know what my location is going to be. But what I want to do is I want to consult. I'm going to freelance, to put it in simple terms. I'm accepting projects from people who want to work with me as a marketing consultant, as a copywriting consultant, someone who wants as a script writer or script writing consultant.
That's really quite interesting. And
Fingers crossed.
thank you so much for your time. And I'm really sure that the audience would learn a lot from your journey, from your struggles. And thank you for being on the channel.
It's been a pleasure, Kriti. Thank you so much. I think you're doing a wonderful job with your podcast and your work, right? I wish I were an author at your age. I'm still not. I don't have a published book of my own. Buy her book, read it. It's available online, right? Um, but honestly, it's what I loved about this podcast was that I've been part of many podcasts before, not many, as I told you about maybe 3 or 4. Uh, Good ones, yes, but I never got into this level of depth over there. So thank you for making me feel comfortable enough to speak about these things. And I hope I have been able to adequately address the questions that you'd asked and give some insights